we only ever achieve what's already in our destiny.
Yes.
Our foresight, or our shortfall, in my opinion, life is that we don't actually know what's in our destiny. So we meander left, right. And when you sometimes see it within somebody, which I saw, and you've got an infectious little smile. When I saw that, and I said to this man, I said, you, Daniel, are going to go far.
I'm joined by someone I'm proud to say a mentor. He is an award-winning entrepreneur. He is Forbes recognized, a Forbes Judge, chairman, and board director of over 16 companies, and as well as a business strategy, a professional keynote speaker, a TEDx talk speaker, private mentor, and as well as an investor with over 30 years of experience in the business and coaching and speaking industry, Mr. Sukhi.
Perfectly said. You smashed it there. Absolutely perfectly said. I'm not sure about all of the rest of the stuff that's been shared there, but I'm just a humble human being who's taking a journey and been blessed with 7 generations of knowledge with our elders.
Yeah.
For that, I'm eternally grateful for. So please, thank you.
This episode of the Wealth and Business Podcast is brought to you by our partner and sponsor, Ramsey & White. Ramsey & White is an award-winning specialist intermediary covering property, finance, wealth management, and estate agency. The Ramsey & White team can help you secure or source funding for your buy-to-lets, your HMOs, your commercial development, holiday lets, portfolio acquisition. They also offer financial reviews covering pension and investment. Not restricted by lenders or locations, the team at Ramsey & White will help you build momentum, covering or growing your investment portfolio. Feel free to contact Ramsey & White, who is our partner and our sponsor for this episode of the Wealth and Business Podcast. The links to contacting Ramsey & White will be somewhere around the show notes. Make sure to reach out to them, as these individuals, this company has actually helped me build my property portfolio over the last 6 years.
What an intro. I
had to do it because I can't forget 2016 was when I first met you.
Yes, that's right.
And you said you gave me a free 15, 30 minutes coaching without knowing me from anywhere, because I shared some great information on where I was going, what I was going through. I was still driving Uber.
Yes.
And one thing that you said, regardless of where you are now, you're going far. You said you're going far as long as you don't give up. You're going far. And I took that word with me. You opened my eyes, and we were having a little chit chat on the backstage just now.
Yes.
And you said it's like when someone's trying to fall asleep and you wake him up and like, wake up. And, you reconditioned my mind at that very time. And
wow.
It just...
Truly grateful for that.
I'm so excited to be sitting with you in the studio with yourself.
We're truly grateful, both myself and Gary, and we've traveled a good 2.5, 3 hours just to be with you.
Yeah.
You, Daniel. And that's what's making all the difference. And I remember that vividly. At the time, I'd just come off stage and there was a queue of people who wanted to speak to me with gratitude. And I needed to give you time. Yeah. And I can remember the conversation that you shared was so heart-wrenching and focused. And as you said yourself, sometimes you just grab somebody and unlock the greatness within them.
Yeah.
And that's basically the same for everybody in this room, everybody listening. Each and every one of you needs to just be held, calm down. You need to hear the vibration of the destiny that's for you. And everybody on this earth has that destiny locked within them. What we've got to do is unlock that. And that's kind of where my journey's kind of meandered towards. I tend to sort of focus a lot around the human brain, around human psychometrics, and how to genuinely unlock human potential. And with you, I can remember it was the fact that you gave me such a strong, powerful, heart-centered understanding around the Black community, about the property journeys, about the investment structures and what's lacking there, that it took my heart. But I did ask you 2 other questions, if you remember, very clearly.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I held you, but those 2 questions are what really helped you unlock yourself. And then ultimately you did it.
Yeah.
And the questions were something like this from my memory. It was, I've got a bit of a weird memory. I tend to remember things very vividly. And I said to you, I get the story. I love it. What's it got to do with you?
Yes.
And then you kind of like slowed down a little. And I said, so now, second, what are you going to do about this? And that's the greatness that happened within you. You know, you may be aligning it to me, but I believe it's the destiny, and we're going to probably go there in some conversation. We only ever achieve what's already in our destiny.
Yes.
Our foresight, or our shortfall, in my opinion, my humble opinion of life, is that we don't actually know what's in our destiny. So we meander left, right. And when you sometimes see it within somebody, which I saw in you, you got an infectious little smile. And that when you showed me your color of your smile, of your vibrancy, of your articulation of language and conversation, and more importantly, the mission was bigger than you. And it was a frightening mission. When I saw that, and I said to this man, I said, you, Daniel, are going to go far. And that's the only reason why I said it. Sometimes people just need to be nudged. My late father, Randhir Singh Wahiwala, a formidable business person in his own right, he said something very clear to me. Son, sometimes you just need to nudge somebody that 1 degree of just a slight directional change. In 100 miles, you'll be in a completely different place. So maybe that day you got nudged, but the rest of the destiny was already yours.
You know, I really like the opening of this conversation because over the years I've encountered people that are also looking to tap from my point of views, direction to help them. And there is this impossibility, regardless of how much you try to nudge them to take in the right direction, to go and get theirs.
I love it.
And they often say, oh, maybe because it was you.
Yeah.
And that's why you're going in the part that you're going, but I don't think it's for me. Why do you think, regardless of how people get nudged to focus in the right direction, but yet they think is from the eyes of the person who has a stronger experience, or actually positioning themselves in where they can actually say, okay, let me be part of this experience and let me go get my direction to go focus on it.
So beautifully said. The key there, if anybody's listening and watching, that you understand that you're getting to a position of unlocking your own potential. And that's what Daniel's talking about here.
Yes.
Is that sometimes what happens is we can get distracted, if I'm correct, Daniel, where you've got your mission, you've got your vision to unlock other people, give them the property path, get them stable in their income and their life so they can help others. The question is every one of us is built and made to help another person.
Yes.
And we're here to support, chaperone, mentor others around us, whether it's our own direct siblings, children, best friends, whatever it is. And in your case, you've opened that map up into a beautiful space of taking on people you don't even know. People who listen to this podcast who've got no rapport with you, but they know inside, they're listening, that you're the person that they need to speak to. Others won't be listening to this podcast. So how do we get the person listening, viewing today to think, to step up and say, this is my vision, my mission? Because that's all we're trying to do. It's not about the money. We definitely get paid for our jobs, but we're trying to unlock people's destiny because it's locked. It's there. So the conversation you said is basically, how do we get people to see past their own limiting beliefs?
Yes.
And it's a science of human psychometrics. I've written a methodology called the Synagus method. And what I do within there is we've taken faith, spiritualism, understanding, and the alignment of self. Because sometimes people can be in a position, I'm not sure if the audience can understand or have experienced this, I'm sure you have, where sometimes you're in a position where everything seems to be going fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, I'm on fire. Everything's working. We're in this position where I wanted my home and I've bought it. I wanted a car and I've got it.
Yeah.
I wanted an evolution of people around me, and that's happened. They're uplifting me. Everything's great. But then you can also be stepping in another conversation where you think things aren't going right. It's as I'm walking through treacle. You said earlier on, how do you become the honey for other thoughts and potentials to unlock and feed on?
Yeah.
How can you step out of this limiting belief? Well, the realization is I've shared this a few times, and very few in podcasts. It's the first time I'm sharing it in a podcast, and it's you who's brought this out of me, Daniel. I rarely go straight into the conversation. It's about human psychology and psychometrics. You've got to know yourself. I've got a methodology, and we use DISC as a framework, but the product itself is Synegus. So if anybody wants to, I'll give you the link, and they can do an assessment within 30 minutes in their own time, and you'll get a 38-page report looking as though you've been videoed all your life, as though there's been somebody on your corner taking notes of who you are as a person with just 30 minutes of your time. What then happens is that you can then turn around and understand your own tendencies, needs, tendencies, and habits that you've picked up over the years, and understand why you have that habit. I'll talk a bit about psychology and psychometrics if you want to go there, but I'm going to go back to the explanation of understanding yourself to understand your own conscious and unconscious journey. Because the moment the second a human being, in my humble opinion, with all the thousands that I've trained, once we've got their head, which is their conscious brain, and their heart center, which is our soul, the seat of the soul, our unconscious mind, connected, as in aligned, so you could drop a penny in and go straight through, that second, that moment, you're aligned with your destiny.
Yeah.
You're aligned, and you can see it and you can feel it, and things come quickly. So is there a science that we can utilize to stop people from meandering off their destiny?
Yeah.
Because sometimes ego is, there's two types of ego. There's an ego that keeps you preserved, the bit that has a name. Yeah. I am called Sukhi. You are called Daniel for a reason. If you had no ego, you wouldn't have a name. We wouldn't be on this podcast.
Yeah.
We can still be humble human beings, but we need some form of identity. And this is natural and due and just and needed. So then there's the ego, which blinds you. That ego preserves you and opens your thought process up to the world. And so you can see what's in front of you, because you realize that you're something, somebody, and you actually have what you were talking about, a journey, a mission, and a purpose in life. But if you have no ego, you wouldn't have any of them. They would mean nothing. You'd have no identity.
Yeah.
But there's a negative ego, which is the ego, which is blind, starts with an I. I do this, I do that, I do this. And we've got a beautiful saying within the Southern Asian hemisphere, and it says, wherever I am, I being me, there is no you being the divine, whichever you believe, spiritual, universe, God, everything is all correct. Wherever I am, there is no you. You're not there. Wherever you are, as in God, the divine, the universe, spiritual realm, anything outside of oneself, there is no I.
So, how much is it that whatever we become in align our purpose has to do with spirituality?
All of it. Everything we are. Whether we know or do not know, in my humble opinion, every single human being is a spiritual being. We are alive. Science has not cracked what actually makes us alive. That buzz, that when I pass, which is inevitable, what actually changes in my body, no one knows. We still can't work it out. There's plenty of parallel studies. But let's rein it back in a little bit and go back to a little bit of focus. That how much has spirituality got to do with my destiny and my version of the world? Well, they both contra each other. They support each other's conversation. If you're talking about destiny and then you're not feeling you're a spiritual being, then that's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about things that I want, then you're probably being accidentally directed away from your destiny. Where it comes is, you know, when we were talking about just a moment ago, you said, how is it that sometimes things go smoothly and sometimes things are like walking through a treacle or mud? When we're off task and off destiny, everything's like mud because it's not in your destiny to have it. But when you're in alignment with your destiny, everything seems to happen smoothly. And we think it's a mindset thing. No, it's a spiritual connection thing. So when you're actually connecting with your inner self, you will start to see, want, understand the things that are in your destiny.
Yeah.
And that's what you should be achieving. And that's where you are as a human being. I mean, that's just a small, light way of explaining what I'm saying. So does that kind of answer that question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of answer my question, because the reason why I had to ask you that question is success, wealth creation, property, you know, whatever you want to become in life. You know, because I've come to a conclusion that everything that we've wanted starts from the within, like the inside job.
The within, yes.
Yeah, the within. So if you're, you know, you see people sometimes, or I mentor people on different things, especially when it comes to property and business. So I give an example. I mentor people on property, deal sourcing, property, buy, refurbish, refinance, HMOs, just property in general. And as well as how do you build your presence so people know and like and trust and want to do business with you, which then goes into, you know, how to market your business, maybe how to brand yourself. And I talk about all these different things. And sometimes you see people saying, okay, actually, I wanted to do property, but now I don't want to do property anymore. I want to go and build myself a brand now so I can become a podcaster. And you see people's attention being pulled into different direction. And then you speak to the next person who actually pulls all the different things. So whether it's branding, whether it's becoming known, whether it's becoming heard, or having the podcast to obviously tailor that into what they do in property. And you see that person more focused. In my case, I use myself as a case study. Everything I do, whether being a keynote speaker, whether being a mentor, whether being talking about branding, it's all aligned towards one thing, which is wealth creation through property. So it all comes back to where the direction is focused and going. But where you see some people, they never are able to pull all the puzzles together to make it a one direction. So you see them going in different directions. And I usually call this chasing so many rabbits and ending up catching any.
Catching none. Yes, that's right. Yes.
So if we connect spirituality, we connect our purpose, and then we obviously design that vehicle that we wanted to create. It's all connects to who you become. How do you correct that inside of you so you're not being pulled into different directions?
I love the question, and it's I think anybody who's listening would understand that it's actually a very multifaceted, very well thought out question.
Yes,
and for that I thank you.
It's got a deep level.
It's a beautiful level, and I'm hopefully if the audience is understanding this and they can see that money, wealth, etc. You know, I was 27 when I became financially free. At that time, maybe my thoughts. Well, I can guarantee my thoughts were different to what I am now. You know, I had a near-death experience when it was 2006, so I was around about 31, 32 years old. So, you know, lots have changed, and we'll talk about those if you want to. But I'm going to answer the question directly. You don't start the same person for all of your life, okay? So let's look at some theories here, if I can put some theory in place, Please. If you don't mind. And there's three things I wanted to cover. One is the phases of life. We call it the power phases in the Synergist method. Then the second thing I want to cover is kind of like, who am I? So that person understands what my pros and cons and what my habits and my inner feelings are, which is basically your kind of like DNA code that's been given to you by the divine or the universe or you know, chance, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And then the third thing is, and then how do I then create the strategy that aligns me, that gives me something that I can use as a tool to empower me thereafter. So the first thing, let's look at the phases of life. People misunderstand that you get it. It's like a school teacher, it's like a school child. My eldest daughter, so she was a few years back now, she's an investment banker, she's done different things. She kind of, well, actually it was when she was finishing GCSEs and she was going into A-level. And she basically turned and said something very simple. She said, and she was getting quite stressed. She'd picked her 3 A-levels and she had to kind of stick with it. And one of the challenges she faced inside herself was the self-challenge or self-checking. I don't know what I want to do in life. So what am I doing at such a young age, selecting these courses and these subjects? Are they going to service me in the future? Is that where I want to be? And the first thing I said to her, I said, Harjot is her name, Harjot. I said, Harjot, if I knew what I wanted to, or that I'd be doing what I am doing today, serenading, evolving, unlocking the human capability, the mindset, the structure, the neuroscience of people, allowing them to attack and go for their life and live because we're in that space. I said, I probably would never have taken those first few steps within retail, within import, export, manufacturing, and online sales, etc. All those sort of early days, 90s, mail order. I've done so much in that space. I wouldn't have taken those journeys, would I? I would have gone straight for this right now. And she went a bit quieter. And I said, she had tears in her eyes. And if she's listened to this podcast, she'll understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. And I said, if everybody knew what they wanted to do, they'd be doing something completely different to start off with. And I said, but you've got to understand that your first choice is in accordance with your current life right now. And nobody can see the future. We will do whatever's necessary to achieve our end goal. We've got to find ourselves within a certain phase. But your current phase, my darling, is for you to take a decision and stick to it and allow yourself to evolve. So don't think that what you're choosing now is what you've got to do for the rest of your life. The moment I said that one line to her, all of a sudden her pressure just went, and she didn't realize that she'd just been released and allowed to just be. Because what you're going to do now isn't what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And that's what we've got to accept. That's the first thing. So phases of life is what I'm talking about. So what does a phase of life mean? Imprint period, which we call 0 to 7. That is a period where whatever one understands, whatever you're doing, within relationships, within a brand new business, within a new vocation, within a new job, within family relationships and ties, and then most importantly, your own biological, ecological flow of life. The first phase of life is imprinting. You put information in that has to be hard and fast. If somebody said to me that this microphone that's under my mouth, under my voice, is a table, and if I was an imprint period, I would take your word for it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Can you move the table closer?
Yeah.
Everybody else may be having a laugh at our expense, but the fact is, in my world, this is a table. If we liken this to the imprint period of life first, 0 to 7 years old, everything that your mum or the mother figure, could be a grandmother, could be anything, the maternal energy gives you is gospel. That's it.
Yeah.
If my mum had told me, son, this is a table, it's a table.
It's a table.
For the rest of my life, it's a table. Even when I'm mapping the information, we call it memory pegging. Even when I'm mapping the conversation of adding, actually it's a microphone later in life, my brain has to align the microphone feeling belief onto the original belief and feeling that I had as a table.
Yeah.
And then I have to repattern it. Do you understand? So, but the original will always have the framework of a table. That's what a table is, not one of those. So now, phase 1 is imprint period, 0 to 7. Phase 2 is known as the modeling period of oneself. Yeah. So remember, we're talking about science first, then we're going to talk about myself, then we'll talk about how to unlock myself, and then how will I use this to find a mission and go forward.
Yeah.
So the first one is the phase of life. Phase 1 is imprint. Phase 2 is modeling. This is when you look at a paternal figure, a parent figure, a father figure, grandfather, uncle, whatever, if they're not in your life, but you're feeling for them. Then you start looking at little funny things like, how do they pick up a glass? Is it in the right hand, left hand? Do they kind of turn the handle this way, and how do they drink? So you model that person. You look and you see and you calibrate yourself and think, I want to, we can all remember doing it. I want to look like my dad. I want to look like my uncle. I think he's cool. I want to do a bit like them, etc. This is now the phase of 7 years old to 14. There's much more detail than this, but it's not enough for the podcast. I think we can probably do an individual podcast just on these points.
Yeah.
Then we have phase 3, which is called the socialization phase, which is 14 to 21. If you notice, they're all in 7-year phases. 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. Yeah. This socialization period is when you start to relate to people who are outside of one's family, a school teacher, your best buddies and friends. And then, when dad says or mum says the world is round and somebody says, no, the world is flat, you may take that information on from the school teacher and come home and say, no, dad, no, mum. You see, you've got another messiah, another person who's teaching you, another swami, as we call it in our language, a teacher, a religious understanding teacher. So that's the information come from the third phase, which is socialization. And that's when you make bonds with your friends, a couple of very cool mates. Towards the latter half of each one of these phases, whether you're talking about imprint, modeling, socialization, at every last couple of years, questions come from within yourself. This is when sometimes people get confused and they're thinking, am I in the right job? Should I still be doing this? Am I in the right relationship? Am I picking the right lessons? Etc., etc. Does that make sense? So you question, and the questions shift you into the next phase.
Yeah.
Modeling, socialization. The fourth phase, which is very, I'm going to go to 5, but the fourth phase, there's a 9 or 10 over in, but fourth phase is maturity. This is when you start to already identify with things the way you understand it. For example, I wear shirts, I don't wear shirts. I close my top collar, I don't. I wear a tie, I don't wear a tie. Things that are a bit more personal, and we now reflect upon how our journey has been. So, for example, I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, or you're regular in that space. It becomes you. You start to tell people, no, I don't do that. When you're in your socialization period, it's very frivolous. It's very bohemian. It's very open. Oh yeah, okay, well let's stay up all night. In your maturity period, you'll say, I've got things to do in the morning. I'm going to go home now. Does that make sense? You'll start to put some parameters that serve me around yourself.
Yeah.
You choose those parameters. You're starting to become mature in your thinking. Then that's 21 to 28. And again, 26 to 28, you get questions. Then 28 to 35, which is the next 7-year phase, is called maturity plus. This is when we start to get questions upon self and say, what is my real purpose in this life? What am I trying to sort of achieve? What's the world really about? What's my life really about? What's living about? These sort of deep questions start to come through because it's no longer enough now. This is what we're talking about when you're trying to acknowledge and connect people. So relating to your question is, how do you get people to see their destinies? But it depends truly of where they are in their phase period. Are they in imprint of their knowledge? Are they in modeling of their knowledge where they need a mentor? Are they then socialization where they're going to go out and give it a go themselves? Do you see? And then are they in the maturity phase of their job, new mission, investment structure? Are they there? So that means they can reflect upon their wins and losses and stuff and say, okay, don't do that again. I'll do this again. I'll do that again. And then finally, what am I going to do with this wealth now? Or what am I going to do with my life now? What's my purpose? Have I got children? Have I not got children? Have I got the correct vehicle to pass information through to them? So this is kind of like a quick 5-phase, power phase, as we call it, from 0-7, imprint, relates to maternal energy, 7 to 14, which is modeling, which relates to paternal energy, 14 to 21, which relates to a teacher, outside, mentor energy. Then we go to the maturity phase, which is self. That's back to understanding self and understanding themselves and finding what's good, what's bad, that suits my life and my mission vision. And then the maturity plus, when you're phasing into a stage where you're thinking about, what am I going to do with this? How do I do something special? What is my true purpose in life? What am I trying to achieve? What's the purpose of life? Why am I even alive? What is it's all about? Okay. So now let's liken this to somebody's journey in business, which is what we're talking about, property investment. Imprint period, they need evidential stuff, they need knowledge. And this is what this is. This is a rent to rent. This is a BR, a buy, renovate, refinance. This is this. So you're giving those modulated knowledge bases. Then they walk into the phase of modeling. Okay, so can you just confirm how you do this, please? Can I watch you? Can you mentor me? Can I bring a project to you? Can you help me? You see how this is working?
Yes.
Then they're going to, what we do is a good mentor. A good mentor doesn't clip the wings of their mentee. So they don't worry about them staying with them forever. You want to be in a space where you want to sort of get them to spread the wings like a parent to a bird and then get them out of the nest. And that's when the socialization comes, when they're going to go and play around. We call it the T-Rex moment. You're going to check your boundaries. You're going to keep going for stuff. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%.
And then, when they've got some wins, got some losses, and that's fine, they start walking into maturity phase. Well, what exactly is my business? What am I actually doing with myself? What can I achieve in life? And more importantly, what is my business? What do I do? Who am I? What am I actually really doing? So now going back into Maturity Plus, when they've hit some success and they repeat the things during maturity of the things that worked. No, it serves me to wake up in the morning. Oh no, it serves me to wake up later. Does that make sense? So they've made these decisions among themselves.
100%. I'll quickly interject quickly. When people go through that phase where they got some results now, and once they got that little bit of a result, all of a sudden they're not getting any more results. Mm-hmm. And in some few case studies, I've seen people who said it's property or never, it's entrepreneurship or never. And once they hit those stages where they had some success, and then all of a sudden there's no more success, and they had to go back to the career.
I understand.
What forms those patterns?
So this is back to the same phase, and we can then talk about who they are as a person, which is the next phase. You beautifully brought it into there. So there is no such thing as never. If you align your conscious and your unconscious brain through tools that I can teach, through the Synergist method, like DFT method, is a methodology that's called daily focused time that helps you with DFT focus. I'm happy to share with your audience a free, and with no buy-in, by the way, just to let everybody know it's not a buy-in product. It's free. We made it freeware through 2020 in the lockdown. And it's remained there. And what you do is you can watch a program with myself and Gary Setterfield, who's one of my business partners, an ex-mentee actually, very similar to yourself and Kevin. And we talk specifically about a 7-step process that you can actually follow yourself that empowers you to be able to come to a clear conscious and unconscious alignment and an answer and a non-distractive action to-do list. Okay, so you can follow that. We can share that by sure. So those are the tools we will use. In phase 2, we're talking about who am I? We need to unlock ourselves. Phase 1, we were talking just a moment ago about the actual power phases, where am I on the journey of the learning, which is the key part. Yeah. So if I start to understand where I am on the journey, there's a little bit more I want to touch on that just a second about psychology, should I say. If you could just repeat that last question, we'll do it again. The actual biology, people in yoga, they'll say things like, every 7 years you have a phase of life, you change, life has changes every 7 years. Every 7 years expect different of yourself, want to achieve things differently. Here's where the science comes in. It's absolutely evident there, imprint, modeling, socialization, maturity plus. Now the point of this is the why, because the first bit, let's look at biology. It's a really clever question, actually. The first bit would be to say that what is the first organ that refreshes itself, replenishes itself? So that's basically reconstructs itself, is your skin. The skin's the largest organ of your body, and every 3 weeks, no cell is the same. Most of the cell is shed away and come off by changing clothes, showering, bathing, that kind of thing. So every 3 weeks, the largest organ is your skin and has replaced. So the last organ, last part of your human entire body structure that replaces is your marrow in your bones. And that takes 7 years to change. So cellularly, it's completely changed every 7 years. It's very powerful to learn this. Here's the cool part. If none of me is the same, what part of me wants me to be the same? So this is when we have those urges and shifts and changes, and every 7 years we're looking for something new. It's shifting us into the next modeling, into the socialization, into the maturity plus, because none of me is the same. And this is what I showed with my daughter, and I said to her, if you're not going to be the same in 7 years' time, my darling, how would you expect to do the same? That's why people like yourself and myself have had coveted journeys of ups and downs, but coveted journeys of change. We've done different things, and now we found our life. I've been on this journey since 2009 and 10, when I've started to mentor people. And my mentoring now is very evolved and very different to what I was doing when I first started off. That's how Gary, one of my co-partners and business people, actually we met. I was actually mentoring him in a speaking conversation, in how to speak on professional stages and things of that sort of nature. So how does that help our audience, and what is it that we can do to align ourselves with our destiny, with ourselves, is the phase 2, which we need to learn. Step 2 is to learn ourselves. So you need to stretch yourself to go and do an assessment of self. You can use as many as you want, but the one I specify is one that we've helped construct. It's on DISC, but it's a little bit more detailed than DISC. DISC is dominant, influencer, stability, and compliant. I'm happy to cover some of this if you want me to.
Yeah. So in a world where entrepreneurs today are quite focused on instant results in the money, I say this specifically because one of the things that drives me at the very early part of my journey in property, in business, in general, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now, and I've never actually achieved so much success than I have actually seen in the last couple of,
Yes.
probably the last 6 years. Even though in 2015 I lost £150,000.
I remember.
But that was £150,000 loss in business. But now I've built a multi-million pound business. So if you then look through the process, sometimes you hit those break walls. Sometimes you have all these different challenges, but the least you've ever been is not the largest you've ever become. But we now live in a world where the first thing that comes to mind is money. Mm-hmm. People's patterns of thinking, patterns of sort of fulfillment is focused around money. But looking back 20 plus years of what I've achieved in my life, and I've actually come to realize that everything is from the inside.
Yes, absolutely. So I talk about a product called the Power Plan. So the 70-20-10 Power Plan. 70% of everything we do in our life is destined and discussed by genetics and our psychology, our mindset, you could say. 70% is mindset. 20% is about the strategy, the structure, what now, what next, and the plan and the organization. You've got to have a plan. Yeah. We all know the fail to plan, plan to fail. Yeah, we know that. That's the 20%. And only 10% is actually taking the action. Because if you can chisel your brain to know exactly what action to take, it doesn't take you that long at all. It's when you have a diffused, what we call a paralysis out there, when you have a procrastinative mindset, things that, you'll fill your life up with stuff to do instead of getting the stuff that you need to do right. So these are the things that we've got to try to understand. So hence, when you used a word a moment ago that I want instant and
gratification.
I was going to use the word gratification, but I didn't want to disrespect you. But instant gratification, or I need the results now, all those sort of things. That's from a particular psychometric. So we were talking a moment about DISC. If we can understand our own personal psychometric, we can start to understand our needs, more importantly, genetically, not just how you've adopted and adapted information. Just because I'm speaking, you're quiet, does that mean you can't speak? No, you've chosen an adoption and you've adapted to the current situation. But inside, everything that I'm sharing, as is everybody else here, is translating this not into a language, into a private code that really resonates with me as a human being, depending on which part and which phase of my life I'm at. So if I can go back to the DISC, dominant individuals tend to be driven by end results. They need to be pushed. They need resistance. They require some form of, you can't do that. A bit like yourself. And I grabbed you and said, okay. And by the way, I did read you. Yeah. That's why I use those specific words. So what's I got to do with you? And what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And those things were like, stopped you to think. Initially, it was like, didn't this guy listen to me? It's like I was trying to tell him my passion and he just now questioned me and challenged me in my moment. But then after you start thinking, hang on, I'm going to prove him right. So that dominancy comes back in and says, I'm going to prove him right. I'm going to do it. So this is your natural state of I can. Let's do it then. So then you had to engage the other states to make that success, because every business has a dominant D, which could be a very good director, a very good managing director, a lead, only if they know that they are that way, because they can also be very abusive, very aggressive. They can be very dismissive. Does that make sense? And they can accidentally be end goal driven and not see anybody en route. You might be thinking either of yourself when you're listening to this, or alternatively, you might be thinking of people around you who are causing that kind of an effect on you. Yeah,
and not to focus on attention to detail.
No detail at all. Trust me. It's detail is out of the question. And that's a significant point that we're going to point out with the C, because the C shows similar traits. I don't want to share that a bit too early, but I'll share with you in a minute. So the D, dominant, end result, end driven, no details, very determined, and most importantly, they have to win. They have to be there. They have to achieve it. They are the ones who tend to get very stuck and lonely after they've achieved, because somebody needs to give them the next contention for them to smash through and achieve. Here's smile if you're watching this on
me there.
Yeah, if you're looking at this now on podcast, if you're watching the visual podcast on YouTube, look at this smile. He's waking up. He's going, I need to go to the next stage.
I'm like a lion.
Yeah, absolutely you are. So now here's the conversation. So then you have the I, influencer. The D has a color red, by the way, just to let you know. They're very attracted to the red. In the space, you'll see a little bit of, shoes, a little streak of red in the background. They don't take orders very well. They'd have to deal with it themselves. Yeah. They have to make the orders, that kind of thing. Then you've got the I, and the I energy, which is the influencer. They're the people they're friends with everybody. They can connect with everybody. They can open any door, but they don't tend to deliver. Not because of anything else, because that was their mission. They're not great completers. They don't finish everything very well. They'll start. They're plate spinners. Plate spinners. They'll move stuff around and they'll start this, start that, start this, start that, but they don't finish it. Initially, if you really understand the value of the eye, you'll realize their job is to get it moving.
Yeah.
Get the inertia going, and once you've pushed heavily, the inertia is moving. Somebody else's job is to take over and then to complete and finish. But if you don't know those people, you'll see them as flaky individuals. People who don't follow through, always promise, over-promise, etc., etc. So they've got a hidden nature. Firstly, their color is yellow. They're very bright, very, very personable, very great friends, and they know how to influence people. Accidentally, if they don't know they're an I, they could accidentally even end up manipulating people, which is very important to understand not to do that. Manipulation and inspiration or influence are two different things, where you can influence somebody to inspire themselves to go forward and take and achieve. Then you can influence somebody to achieve something that serves you and not that person. Yeah. So when you're serving them, that's called inspiration. When you're serving them to serve you with no benefit to them, that's a manipulation, and I do not agree with that. So even when I teach people this, so you might be thinking, how can I learn all this stuff and I can go through as much more detail? I'm very selective of who sits in our rooms, because if I can't see the integrity, if I can't understand this, and I can quite quickly, I've written 3 books in this: Human Nature, Psychometrics, and Body Nanotensions and stuff. If I don't see it, I would be tooling somebody up who's going to abuse and exploit others. It's only a phase of life. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be like that. That means they don't really know their ability. Yeah. And they're thinking, well, I'm good at that, so I'll just keep it going. So there's the I, yellow. They start great starters. Then we have both the D and the I's in this scenario, or the spectrum of profiles. They are what we classify and call extroverted energies, which means basically if they feel down and disoriented, they will go out into the public agenda and they'll connect with another human being. Does that make sense? And they get vibrancy, energy from other people. The I will go to anywhere, but the D will only go to a trusted group of people who don't judge him or her. Does that make sense? Yeah. And because he or her has got nothing to do with this. They're extroverted energies. They recharge themselves in the external environment with another human being. Then you have, if we go back a second to the S and the C. So the S stands for stability. Their color is green if you're looking at colors, yeah? So red is D. I is yellow, S is green. So the green people are the green people. They like ecology, they like balance, they like to be supportive. They want to be a part of a big mission, but they don't want to lead it. But they want to be a part of it. They want to encourage other people. They want to engage them. They're very good at supporting people and getting the best out of them. And they're never chameleons. They're always very humble and in their own space, and they're good with that. Does that make sense? They don't need the limelight. They don't need the branding. They don't need I ams all over the place. In fact, they're quite happy to support an I am. Yeah? As long as they're being respected and loved. Super loyal. Their unsung rhetorical question, remember the D's rhetorical question? We call it a power, unanswered power question, is specifically about, am I winning? That's the D's job. The I's is, am I being loved? Everything they do is hidden by that. And we're still friends, aren't we? Yeah, we're okay, aren't we? That kind of energy. Yeah. And the D is like, I did it first. Have I done it first? In my head, I'll be thinking, I got it first. It's good. I can talk to you about it. And then the S energy would be, am I safe? They're not interested in winning being first or loved and that kind of thing, they will give the love unconditionally, but they need to be safe and secure and stable, hence why stability is there. So they're in the question, their rhetorical question, they're soft natured, they're heart-centric, they're very, very maternal energy, very warm, and they will do things for you. They're the type of people who put a cup of coffee or a drink for you without you even thinking and asking about it. Those sort of energies. And they will ask themselves, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe in everything they do? Don't go too fast. That's not safe. That doesn't mean they're weaker than you. In fact, the S energy is always poo-pooed and looked down upon, but actually they're the most stable, they're most consistent, and you can always see that they don't shine out. But when you go to them, they've always got a pot of gold. They've always got that organized. They've always got the house in the right place. They've always got themselves very organized. Does that make sense? They're very stable. So am I safe? They're very quick to understand, what do I need to make myself safe? You have the C, compliance, fourth energy, which is the conscientiousness, or the people who think a lot. So that's the blue energy, if you're coloring colors. They are strategic. They are steps. They are order. They are organization. They are process-driven. They are facts, figures, knowledge, specialists. They are true experts in their field. They're the ones who will accrue committedly. They've got 12 years worth of 12,000 hours worth of research. They're also very much in the space of understanding their pros and their values of oneself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're very strategic in their thinking, but they also have a little downside where they don't necessarily take action too quickly. And sometimes they want too much information, or they share too much information, which overrides everybody. The difference, but I said to you, they're very in their space and they know where they're going, which is very much D energy as well, yes? But there's a succinct difference, and I said to you, remember details. So the dominant D doesn't do details. They're like, where do you need to go? I'll work it out en route. So they start now. And the C says, analysis paralysis. Hang on a second. Give me more information first. Sorry, I hope that helps a little bit. So
yeah, it does. And I just wanted to quickly, because I had this burning question, I had to quickly throw it into what you've just said. So the disc is almost like your personality types. Correct?
It is.
Now, the S energy, are these people entrepreneurs?
Beautiful question. Very powerful. So I was recently on a podcast where I was asked to assist people to understand what kind of entrepreneur they are.
Yeah.
And then it was on a property podcast like yours, and it was like, what kind of property investor am I? Okay. So would that help if I go through those profiles?
Yeah.
So everybody has all four natures within them. Everybody is a D, everybody's an I, everybody's an S, and everyone's a C. We're all heart-centric, which is the S energy. We can all start and be vibrant and be fun with people. We can all be end goal driven as well. And we can all process information. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got all of them. We can all lead, we can all sell, we can sell, even to ourselves. And we can all love, care, and we can also think things through in a systematic format. Yes?
Yes.
So we're all of them. The question is on the inside, which is our nature, and outside, which we show to people as an adapted or adopted nature. As I said earlier on, you're listening to me, you're not talking. That doesn't mean you can't speak. You've taken an adoption of being the host and supporting myself as your guest to get the knowledge out.
Yeah.
That's your specialism here. So you're changing the framework. But inside, you're still thinking like Daniel. I can hear those questions. I can see them, and I can see you twitching, and I can see you right now. So that's still you inside. Can you see?
Yeah.
So what we need to understand is that if you've done DISC before, a lot of the DISC assessments don't give you your natural traits. They hide that natural profile from you. They give you all the others, they give you for free, because what they do is they rope you in. Now that you've just given them an assessment, they now know everything about you on a social basis. So they'll show you those type of pictures, show those type of engagements, and get you to take those type of actions. It's a very strong influential tool. Our system, nothing like that. The moment a person does an assessment, I can't even log in to get their information. It is not allowed by choice. No backdoor, no nothing. The only person who receives it is you. You do the assessment, you'll get an email, you take it, and you read it. And if ever you want to share that with somebody, you have to send it to them yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so now going back to the conversation. Every single human being needs to know the natural state. So the first thing you've got to understand is your natural profile. So if you don't know that, you're guessing and you're winging it. Everybody. So what does this mean? This means I should know my pros. I should know what I really love to do inside, and I should also know what I tend to overlook as well, like what I ignore. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So my weaknesses and my strengths, let's call that. So there's an old saying that says, keep my friends closer, but keep my enemies closer still. So replacing that with a lovely conversation saying, keep my strengths close so I know what I'm good at. But actually deeper than that is to find out, how can I keep my weaknesses closer than that so I can understand what I'm actually missing? How can I actually help somebody in a quicker, easier way? How can I unlock somebody else in the conversation? And what are my traits? What are my habits to take away? So they all come from nature. Some people will start business and they absolutely smash it. Then they're bored of it and they want to sell it. That's very much a D way of doing it.
Yeah.
Then you have an I. Some people, they start consistent. They start businesses and then don't make a completion of it because great ideas, and you call them ideapreneurs. Okay. And by the way, I'm not renouncing any of the power of any of these profiles.
Yeah.
These are people who have not found themselves. But the moment you've unlocked your potential, you know straight away who you are, what you are, and you'll attract the others into your life.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's about partnerships, it's about connecting, it's about finding all the energies. A D makes a brilliant managing director. An I makes an amazing salesperson. An S makes amazing HR. A C makes amazing auditors, operations, accounts. Got it? So now we realize we need all four of those energies. No or better, no or worse. Because once you're unlocked, you'll start to realize that's the case. So let's liken this to a sat nav. A car satellite navigation. What do? We open up sat nav, start the car, and we on our phone or whatever, and we put the address in and press send. Then it plots the route, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But there's one hidden feature which no one talks about, because you've put the destination in.
Yep.
But it cannot work unless it's plotted you right now.
Yeah.
So it then does a secret thing. It checks where are you right now, because I've got to get from here to here.
And where you're going.
Got to go around. So that's my destination. But I need to unlock myself to find out where am I right now on my phases. Power phases is what I was talking to you about. That's why it took such a long time to go through this. My apologies, everybody. Hopefully it's been valuable. What phase am I in my real life? Do I even know myself as a human being, what my traits, my pros and cons are, what my habits are? And then finally, how can I now turn this into a strategy that can be followed? For example, a actual route, a plan, a roadmap to financial, emotional success. So we said something earlier with reference to the journey of everything. So whether I'm becoming an entrepreneur, if I know that I am a dominant person, I also know that I have a weakness. Remember, I keep weaknesses close. I don't like details if I'm that person. So I should have a C in my world. And I also know I don't really care too much about people. So I should have an S in my world. And then maybe, do you know what? Some of the stuff that doesn't necessarily get opened very quickly, like a quick sale, I'll tell you what, I needed a salesperson in the world as well. So you bring all four energies to make a successful business. And the same for the I. The I should know all of those same points. They can do the selling, but they need somebody to lead and to ensure that we finish, somebody to manage the figures, and somebody to manage the team. Then they go to the S energy. S energy knows that they're not good for sales. They're great for keeping the team together and organizing it, human rights and structure. They need somebody to lead, they need somebody to sell, and they also need somebody to do the figures. And the figures person accidentally could think they could do all of it as well. Anybody who's not locked and doesn't do an assessment, doesn't know themselves, they're going to be in this half-able space. The C requires a seller. They require somebody to keep the team together because they haven't got time for that. And they also require somebody to lead because they want to just do the figures, make sure we're making money.
Yeah.
So there's the four types of areas. Every single person who is unlocked, irrelevant of your psychometric, if you're unlocked and you believe it and understand it, you then put the strategy together, which is now to find the right mentors, to stretch your roadmap. How can I take action is when I'm unlocked. Sometimes when I'm likening it back to the conversation of conscious and unconscious, the alignment, using the DFT tool. It's a whole host of Synergist tools that we've created where I need to get this action done right now. The key is, whatever your psychometric, do you know it? And do you know your flaws, but your pros as well? And if you know your flaws, then you should be able to attract the other four energies to complete that pod. We call it power teaming, yes? Then, in your groups, for example, you'd have people, they're fine to work on their own, but they're going to make a mistake because they don't do details. So they require the other three energies and the one in the middle, and you just pod them together. It's like, hang on a second, why don't you and you get together? This way, everyone will be successful. This way, even the people who think they're not made for business, everybody's made for business because everything is the same. Whether you're working for somebody or in business, you're still doing a full day's worth of work with a focus. Some people require frameworks and some people don't.
Yeah.
The key here is, do I know? And that's the key. The key is, do I know what I am, what my nature is, and what my flaws are? So I should pull those fours in and say, do you know what? Daniel, Kevin, Gary, we should work together. We make a complete team, have you noticed?
Yeah.
And then it's like, you better get out of the way. Millie, please, let's work together. And all of a sudden you realize that everything's starting to flow. But can I touch on something?
Yes, please.
Going back to the power phases.
Yes.
That answers your question, but it's very important to understand this. As a power phase, every single relationship is a relatingship, a related kindredship, which is where the kindredship comes from. Everybody, if you don't relate to each other, that means you don't take the time to listen to your language, have the tools and the ability to speak your language. And I'm not talking about French, English, you might as well be, but I'm talking about actually understanding you as a human being, using the power words, the trigger words, something that keeps you moving forward as the D, something that keeps you fun, excited, excitable, interested as an I, something that keeps you safe and secure as an S, or something that gives you structure and plan and realization that you're following in a flow as a C. If you don't do that, you're always going to fall out with people. And you need to understand you can relate to these people, a relatedship. Just because you're blood connected and blood related, my father said, just because you're blood related, that doesn't make you relations. You still have to work on relating to that person. So you have to be aware of who they are. Can you imagine being able to read people in seconds? That's what I teach. I want to unlock you so you can read other people and then create the plan of connection with everyone.
Wow.
That's what I want to do.
Wow, Sukhi.
So every single thing has to work. Everyone who's listening, you can all be successful at everything you do. Let me tell you, we have a 100% hit ratio. The people, we don't clip your wings. When it's time for you to move on, go and become the wonderful Dr.Daniel, Moses, as you are now. Nobody clipped your wings. Everyone said, get on with it, we support you. And now you're somebody today who's seeing your destiny and feels it. If you're confused, what is it that I've got to do in life? Come and see and seek out Daniel. Yeah. Come and seek out myself if you want to. Find us, connect, and do something good for yourself. Don't waste your time. Get aligned. 7 steps it takes you just to get your conscious and unconscious right. 7 clean steps. It's like you just become completely active and focused. Overwhelm, thing of the past. Confusion, thing of the past. 100% of every single thousands of people using this come back saying, and by the way, they start become very successful and very active. But let me share. Remember I told you about these phases? One key thing that everybody remembers, you must remember when you start becoming successful and start achieving those lower goals and stuff like that, guess what happens? Your brain says, I don't need DFT or something else anymore, and then you start to plummet again.
Yeah, I've seen that happen to a lot of people. Yeah, I've seen people even come into our property courses, and then they learn one thing, then it's like, oh no, that's fine. I only just need you to teach me one step, and that's fine. And then they go and make so many different types of mistakes.
Yes, and we're hurting inside again. Come on, you got such potential. Yeah. Just please listen to me. Just please listen to me. But no, the point is that the people who are actually listening to you as well, even they will go through phases. Yeah.
And that's when you see people blame mentors. Oh, that mentors didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. And they just keep
moving.
I actually had a very interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago. Mental skip. And this individual said, I spent over £100,000. I've been educated. I've had mentors. I don't need them anymore. And I said, Great.
God bless you.
This is why you need more mentors. But you don't need more mentors. You actually need one mentor that can actually help you to your next 5-year journey.
Unbelievably said. Beautifully said. And also, a real mentor is very selfless. A real mentor knows that we're not going to be together for life as a mentee. It's different when they evolve and become like Kevin and the rest of the people in your journey who are actually working in your direct capacity. That's different. A real mentor won't clip your wings. A real mentor will say, stretch. Come on. You can do it.
Let's go.
I'm underneath you. That's what you need. That's what mentors are for. Mentors are there to unlock your potential. And that's what you need to do. You need to get into if you're listening, the key message you need to know is to stop procrastinating. Get onto I've got a course which I think we probably might share and do within your community, which is to say bye-bye to procrastination. That'd be the first step. Second step is to go and learn yourself. Let me tell you, after I've given you the bye-bye to procrastination, it's an afternoon course. The students will have the tools. A real mentor like you and myself, we don't hold the tools back. We give you the tools and say, can you use them at will? At will. That's the key. Yeah. And that's when you know you've got yourself a real mentor. Yeah. So every single person who deals with myself, and I'm not going to take this into a morbid stage, but I need to share this very openly. Accepting death liberates you. Because there's only one truth in this world, that you will die. My late father, Randeer Singh, used to say, Wahiwala used to say, accept death, liberate yourself from it, and then don't die before your time.
Don't die before your time.
That means live to the end of your days. Go for it, every single thing. Know that I'm going to go, live with honor, live with self-respect, and assist and help other people, earn an honest living, give back to society, give back to people who need you, and then also connect to yourself, self-orientation, whether that's through prayer, meditation, or DFTs and structures, the tools that serve you. Remembering, checking who I am, where I am, which phase of my life am I at. And this is very clear. It's like at 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 40, 42, 49, 56. I guarantee you, these ages I've just given, every single listener, please write them down. I'll write them again. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, and 56. Let's stop there for a second. It's just 7 years, okay? Every one of you, if whatever stage and phase you are in your life, every one of those ages, you have done something significant that's changed your life. Significant shift, change, direction, relationships, got married, lost marriage, had children, moved yourself forward, career changes, start a business for yourself, jacked in the business, whatever. Something specific has happened to you, guaranteed, in the 7 year phases. Because guess why? If none of me is the same, what part of me still wants the same?
Yeah.
It's not possible. So you will change. I hope that's helping everybody here. I really, really love this. This has come out from nowhere. We hadn't planned this, and it's so wonderful in the conversation. But I have to emphasize, there's phases that you live within. There's a genetic order that you need to unlock of yourself for success. Then it's now, what do I plan and structure? How do I now deliver this? And then finally, when you get to that final stage of understanding, it's about getting your mission clear about the rest of the world, the rest of your life, the rest of your time, not just about me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Interesting you said this. And recently I wrote a book called The Test, Transition from the Ordinary to the Extraordinary. And whilst I sat down to write that entire book, one thing made sense. When the day I dropped the pen, the day I I finished writing it, it said everything was connected through the adversity, through the roller coaster. Everything made sense because it took me to who I have become, so that others can see that same part, or those who are actually going through that part of their life, so they can implement the same strategies. Because one of the things that we have, or we are forgetting in today's world, is that everything that you go through in your life is leading you to somewhere. And just listening to you speaking about different phases of life, from the moment you're 17, so from the moment you're 7, you're 14, and you actually went through them, but I can't remember the exact numbers. It all absolutely makes sense that over time, when you look back, you have changed.
I love it.
You have become someone else.
You have. And the reason why you didn't remember the times is because you actually started to reminisce on those ages. That then forgets the age. You're now focused on what you're doing. Hence, I read body language for many years. Yeah. So it's just 7 times table. So 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56 and on. So you can get a pen and paper and everybody just write those down. But the phase that you're talking about, you can relate to that because you've been through it. We talk about evidence and experience. Experience can also be handed down.
Yeah.
And I have 7 generations of it, which has been blessed from ourselves. We've always had a religious understanding. We've always had a business understanding. We've always had a helping back philanthropic understanding in our Wahiwala clan. Our Wahiwala brand name, should I say, it was gifted to us as a title in 1800s.
Wow.
To my 5th grandfather, Kanhaiya Singh. And it was gifted by the king at the time of Punjab, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and there was a title given. So that title, because my elders were a kind of like a confide, a person who would look at the religious texts and help somebody moving forward. So like a gyani, a priest, somebody of that sort of nature, a rabbi or a religious person, a Maulana. And all those energies, they basically came and helped, and they were given land. So what did they do even those days? In those days, they realized that they didn't need that. We were wealthy. We already had businesses, land. We already had... with gratitude. I don't tell this from an arrogant space. I'm telling you from a space of realizing self, understanding. So they already realized that we have enough. How can we now create for more? They basically were given the gifted of the land. They put a mosque, a mandir, a temple, and a gurdwara, a Sikh gurdwara. And then they build 10, 20 houses, and they gifted and seeded a community. And that community now is a city. It's called Wahiwala, actually, to be honest with yourself. It's still south of Lahore, in what's now in Pakistan, as opposed to India, but it's been cut off by Punjab in 1947. And ironically, today is the 15th of August, 2023. It's actually Independence Day of India. And yesterday was the Independence Day of Pakistan. So Pakistan and India were created by the British Empire by slicing one country into two on the 14th of August, 47 and 1947, and the 15th of August, 1947, which then displaced a lot of people without going into too much detail. But the point I'm trying to say is that knowledge that was eldered for our elders has been percolating within us. We can all share. We can feel that learning and be able to share it with other people. So I think all of us need to have the responsibility, self-responsibility to find ourselves, to understand ourselves, to be able to unlock our potential, to be able to put a strategy and a plan in place, get into what is my purpose in life? What am I really trying to achieve? And then after you've done those sort of things, okay, so what am I now going to leave on this planet to help others? You know, if I can get somebody in this podcast at whatever their journey of life and they can create the change, that's wonderful. The test, you were talking with your brilliant book, when you were writing it, you realized everything was connected. Of course it's interconnected. Guess why? Because it's you. Your source code is the connector to all of it. They don't connect to each other. They connect via you. You're the conduit. Yeah. And that's the key that you wrote about. That's what you were talking about. Of course it's connected. And being able to help somebody without a plan to help them and help yourself. Remember, you must always put the gas mask or the oxygen mask on yourself first. Otherwise you're useless to somebody else. Is that fair? So what we need to understand is that how can I help others by helping myself first? And once you've had your fill, you will naturally start to help other people. Because in the Sikh faith, I'm a British-born Sikh. And in Sikhi, we call it, we clearly state that we should have everything you want in life. You should have a marriage. You should have children. You should have a family. You should have a business. You should have income. You should have a connection to self. You should have a connection to the world. You should be faith-driven. You should have some faith of some kind, universal faith, whatever it is, spiritually. And your main core, the 3 tenets of Sikhs are keep connected to self, which is Naam, which is connection of the name of God, but reciting something that keeps you working. Could be a mantra that works for you if you're not God-believing. Then Girt, which is basically to create and earn an honest income of unlocking, helping, serving others by earning money as well. And then the third element is to share that knowledge, not just money. Knowledge, experience, all those ups and downs that you've picked up, that makes you as the individual, so that when somebody actually asks you something, Daniel, you are looking back at your storage and saying, hang on a second, that happened to me over here. This is what I didn't do. Yes. So son, do this, or daughter, do that. Sister, do this, brother, do this. Does that make sense? So everything makes us and brings us to this point, but we've had people who've had some serious adversities in their life. Very raw adversities. And in that moment, in that heat, they can't work out why this happened to them. So if you're listening, and I'm not trying to belittle this, please take my honest respect. If you've been through abuses of any kind and stimulations and things that hold you back, they're real. If you're in a depression, this is real. But you need to turn around and think beyond it. At some stage, you will reflect back upon yourself, and somebody who crosses your path has gone through the same experience, and you will then be able to turn around and help that person with the same experience that you've gone through, and how you stood on your feet, how you regained yourself, how you earned your own stripes back and lived your life again. Remember, I want to end on one point. We will all die. Every truth, every faith, every one of us knows we will die. That's the only real truth we've got in this world.
Yeah.
But don't die before your time. Live right to the end. When it's your time, go humbly, be fulfilled, and know that you've lived an unlocked life that's achieved and helped others. On this journey here, Gary and myself, we were talking about reflecting. I've just turned 49 only last week. And my children, my eldest daughter, and all the children, in their own words, right, Dad, maybe one day you'll actually stop to reflect on all that you have achieved and given to this world and to others. And I finished all the sentences off and said, yes, that was destined for me, but I feel blessed that I was able to be able to unlock that potential and align with my destiny and understand that wherever I am, I didn't do it from an I place. Whatever I own in my life, whatever I am in my life is not mine. It's the divine and divine only. Because we're not creating new things. We're living and learning, and we're absorbing, and we're regurgitating, and we're learning from wisdom of past, wisdom of current. Wisdom is only created by a simple loop of understanding you've taken an action, reflecting upon the action unconsciously, and then consciously understanding, what have I just learned?
Yeah.
Only then does some knowledge become wisdom, is when you can actually share it with another.
Yeah.
All of us have one understanding. Teach another, and you will then truly understand.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sukhi, for coming all the way 2 hours drive to Bromley, to the podcast, the Wealth and Business Podcast. And it's been absolute pleasure. This is not going to be the first or last episode.
Yay.
We're just going to do multiples because
Bless.
You've shared so much wisdom that I think entrepreneurs need to embed in themselves from the heart.
Wow.
In order for them to be that true extraordinary that they truly want to become.
Thank you.
On this note, thank you guys for watching, and please make sure you give Sukhi a follow on all his media outlets. He's on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So make sure you go and check him out, and we cannot wait to be announcing some things that we're planning to do to the community so that every one of us can become that true transitioned entrepreneur. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.